You know what's interesting? I've met people who make six figures and still call themselves bad with money. I've also met people earning minimum wage who somehow feel completely in control, and for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what the difference was. But then I realized something. When someone says they're bad with money, they're rarely talking about math. They're talking about something much deeper. They're talking about shame. And today, we're going to unpack that together, because I think you might be carrying a story about yourself that isn't even true. But before we go further, if this kind of content resonates with you, if you want more honest conversations about money without the hype or the shame, do me a favor and hit that like button. And subscribe, because we're building a community here that talks about money like real humans, not robots. Alright, let's dive in. So let me ask you this. What does it actually mean to be bad with money? Because if you think about it, nobody's born knowing how to budget, or invest, or negotiate a salary. We're not taught this stuff in school. Most of us learn about money from our parents, who learned from their parents, who probably learned during a completely different economy. So if you feel like you're bad with money, I want you to pause and ask yourself, bad compared to what? Compared to some imaginary person who never makes mistakes? Compared to the highlight reel you see on social media? Or compared to a version of yourself that never actually existed? Here's the thing. Most people who say they are bad with money aren't actually bad with money. They just made a few decisions they regret, and then they turned those decisions into an identity. Maybe you racked up credit card debt in your 20s. Maybe you didn't start saving until later than you thought you should. Maybe you bought something expensive that you didn't need. And now every time you think about money, you think about that moment. And slowly, without even realizing it, you started telling yourself a story. I'm just not good at this. I'm impulsive. I'm irresponsible. I'm bad with money. And once that story sets in, it starts to run your life. Because if you believe you're bad with money, why would you try to get better? If you believe you're just not the type of person who saves or invests or plans ahead, then every time you mess up, it just confirms what you already thought. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're not bad with money. You just believe you are. And that belief is costing you more than any mistake ever did. Now, let's talk about shame for a second. Because this is where it gets real. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. And when it comes to money, shame is everywhere. We're ashamed if we don't make enough. We're ashamed if we spend too much. We're ashamed if we don't have savings. We're ashamed if we don't own a home by a certain age. We're ashamed if we're still paying off student loans while everyone else seems to have it together. And the worst part, we don't talk about it. We just carry it. Silently. Privately. Like it's some kind of personal failure. But here's what nobody tells you. That shame isn't helping you. It's not motivating you to do better. It's paralyzing you. Because when you're ashamed, you avoid looking at your bank account. You avoid opening bills. You avoid thinking about the future because thinking about the future means confronting the present, and the present feels too heavy. So you just don't. And then the avoidance creates more problems, which creates more shame, which creates more avoidance. It's a cycle, and the only way to break it is to stop treating money like a measure of your worth. Let me tell you about someone I know. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah grew up in a house where money was tight. Her parents fought about it constantly. Every bill was a crisis. Every unexpected expense felt like the end of the world. And Sarah, being a kid, absorbed all of that. She learned that money equals stress. Money equals conflict. Money equals danger. So when Sarah grew up and started making her own money, she didn't know how to handle it. Not because she was dumb or careless, but because money triggered something deep in her. It brought back all that childhood anxiety. So she spent it. Quickly. Impulsively. Because spending it felt like getting rid of the stress. She wasn't being irresponsible. She was coping. And I think a lot of us are like Sarah, in some way. We're not bad with money. We're just carrying emotional baggage that we don't know how to unpack. Maybe your parents never talked about money, so you never learned. Maybe you grew up poor, and now you spend because you're trying to prove you're not poor anymore. Maybe you grew up wealthy, and spending is just what you saw modeled. Maybe you're anxious and shopping makes you feel better. Maybe you're depressed and you've stopped caring. Maybe you're overwhelmed, and ignoring your finances feels easier than facing them. None of that makes you bad with money. It makes you human. So, if you're still watching, Drop a comment below and just say I'm human. Because I want you to know you're not alone in this. And I read every single comment. Alright, let's keep going. Now, here's where things start to shift. Because once you understand that your relationship with money is emotional, not mathematical, you can start to change it. You can start to separate your behavior from your identity. You can start to say, okay, I made some mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm a mistake. I overspent last month, but that doesn't mean I'm an overspender. I didn't save in the past, but that doesn't mean I can't start now. You see the difference? It's not about being perfect. It's about being flexible. It's about giving yourself permission to learn and grow without dragging your entire past into every decision. And this is the part that people don't talk about enough. Getting better with money isn't about discipline or willpower or some intense budgeting system. It's about changing the way you see yourself. Because if you see yourself as someone who's capable, someone who's learning, someone who's allowed to make mistakes and still move forward, then the actions start to follow. You start checking your account because you're not scared of it anymore. You start saving a little because you believe you're the kind of person who saves. You start saying no to things you don't need because you not trying to fill a void anymore. The behavior changes because the identity changes. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you want to start saving money, but every time you try, something comes up and you spend it. Most advice will tell you to automate your savings or cut your expenses or make a budget. And sure, those things help. But if you still see yourself as someone who's bad with money, those tactics won't stick. Because deep down, you don't believe you're capable of saving. You think you're just going through the motions until you inevitably mess up again. So instead, start smaller. Start by proving to yourself that you can save $5. Just 5. Put it aside and leave it there for a week. That's it. You're not trying to build wealth. You're trying to build evidence. Evidence that you're someone who can do this. And then next week, maybe it's $10. Or maybe it's still 5. But you do it again. You're not focused on the amount. You're focused on the identity. You're becoming someone who saves. And once that identity takes root, the amount doesn't matter anymore. You'll save because that's who you are now. This is the turning point. This is where you stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. You stop trying to be some perfect financial guru and start being a real person who's learning as they go. And that's when things get easier. Not because money gets easier, but because you stop making it mean something about your value as a human being. Now let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Because theory is great, but you need something you can actually use. So, here's what I want you to do. First, write down one money decision you regret. Just one. Maybe it's a purchase. Maybe it's a missed opportunity. Maybe it's a debt you took on. Write it down. And then, next to it, write down what you learned from it. Not what you should have done differently. What you learned. Because every mistake is data. Every misstep is information. You're not bad with money. You just didn't have the information you have now. And that's okay. Second, I want you to look at your current financial situation without judgment. Not to fix it, not to shame yourself. Just to see it. How much do you have? How much do you owe? How much comes in? How much goes out? You don't need to change anything yet. You just need to know where you are. Because you can't get somewhere new if you don't know where you're starting from. And I promise you, the fear of looking is worse than the actual looking. Once you see it, it becomes manageable. It becomes real instead of this vague, terrifying thing lurking in the background. Third, pick one small financial habit you can do this week. Not this year, not this month. This week. Maybe it's putting $10 in savings. Maybe it's packing lunch instead of buying it one day. Maybe it's just not buying that thing you were about to impulse purchase. One thing. One win. Because you are building momentum. You're collecting evidence that you're not who you thought you were. You're someone who's figuring it out. And that's more powerful than any budget spreadsheet. And here's the thing. You don't need to have it all figured out right now. You don't need to know how to invest or retire or buy a house or any of that. You just need to take the next step. Just the next one. And then the one after that. Progress beats perfection every single time. Because perfect never happens. But progress happens every time you choose to show up for yourself. Even when it's hard. Even when you're scared. Even when you've messed up 100 times before. If you're finding value in this, do me a favor and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. because I guarantee you know someone who's struggling with this same shame, this same story, and they need to know they're not alone. Alright, we're almost there, so let's bring this home. If you've been telling yourself you're bad with money, I need you to hear this. You're not bad with money. You're human. You've made mistakes, sure. But mistakes don't define you unless you let them. And the fact that you're here, watching this video, trying to understand yourself better, trying to do better, that tells me everything I need to know about you. You care. You're trying. And that's not someone who's bad with money. That's someone who's on a journey. And journeys take time. Your relationship with money is just that. A relationship. And like any relationship, it's complicated. It's messy. It's full of history and emotion and patterns you didn't even know you had. But also like any relationship, it can change. It can heal. It can grow. You just have to stop punishing yourself for the past and start being curious about the future. What if you could feel calm when you checked your bank account? What if you could make a purchase without guilt or shame? What if you could save money without feeling like you're depriving yourself? What if you could talk about money without that, not in your stomach? That's possible. Not because you'll suddenly become perfect, but because you'll stop expecting yourself to be. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, every time you catch yourself saying or thinking I'm bad with money, I want you to pause, and I want you to reframe it. Say instead, I'm learning about money, or I'm figuring this out, or even just I'm human. Because words matter. The story you tell yourself matters, and you deserve a better story than the one you've been carrying. Money is not the enemy. Shame is avoidance, is the belief that you're not capable is. But you're not the problem. You never were. You're just someone who's been trying to survive in a world that does unteach us this stuff, that makes us feel bad for not knowing, and that profits off our insecurity. So let's stop playing that game. Let's stop letting money define our worth. Let's start seeing it for what it is. A tool. A resource. Something we can learn to use better, one small step at a time. And if you take nothing else from this video, take this. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your bank account. You are a person. A whole, complex, beautiful person who's doing the best they can. And that is enough. It's always been enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for being brave enough to question the story you've been telling yourself. If this resonated with you, leave a comment. Share your story. Let's build a community where we talk about money like real people, not like we have to have it all together. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. You're doing better than you think.